Hello everybody, welcome to Make It Monday. My name is Carol Garrison and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I'm very grateful that you took time out of your schedule tonight to join me for this week's Make It Monday. It is February 27th and I've got hat hair today. We had, on top of all the snow that we got last week, which thankfully was about 8 inches less than what they had predicted, today we had rain falling on top of the snow, so I had to go out and scrape my driveway in the hopes of minimizing some of the slips and falls that are bound to occur when our temps drop tonight. Eventually this weather will be over, I think. Anyway, I appreciate you taking time to join me tonight. It is February 27th, which means you only have tonight and tomorrow to take advantage of Sale-a-bration, including earning free products when you purchase items of, purchase $50 or more in Stampin' Up! Products. And also, if you are thinking about possibly signing up to take advantage of the Hi April, take advantage of the joining special during Sale-a-bration, which is $175 worth of products, plus a mini cut and emboss machine for $129, or $175 worth of product, no mini cut and emboss machine for $99. It's the best deal in the catalog, and that offer expires tomorrow. So I just want to make you aware of it. And said, I hope everybody had a great week. We spent some time on Saturday helping our daughter clean out the last of her apartment stuff, which is never a fun project, but we did it together. Hey, Ann. So we were able to get it done, and now we just have to wait to see if we pass muster with the apartment management company so that she can get her full deposit back. We'll see what happens with that. She has settled back in her new place, and I know she has all containers empty because they all came back to our house, and hopefully she will soon be situated in her new apartment. Luna, her cat, went back home with her on Saturday from our house, so we were again without cats for at least a small period of time here until I can find a couple of kittens. Anyway, I am anxious to share with you tonight actually two items that you could get for free through the Sale-a-bration catalog, but remember this ends tomorrow. So I'm going to just jump right into this tonight and flip my camera over. Apologize for any jiggling that occurs in this process. Just a moment, please. At least this time I did remember to flip my camera right when I started the video, and except for that ugly close-up of my hand and lovely ceiling, here we are, and I think I'm pretty good actually on my setup as well. Sometimes I wonder where my camera stand is going to end up with the image when I do this. I'm going to quick plug my phone in just so I don't have any issues with that. And like I said, I'm very excited to be sharing with you this card tonight. I was, when I first saw it, I was thinking it was an entirely different layout and assembly process. And I was surprised at how easily it did go together. And so if you've watched my videos, you know I like cards that give lots of wow without taking a lot of time to get them put together. And I think this is one that fits the bill. I originally saw this layout from a card that Sharon Armstrong, she's a demonstrator down in Texas, that she had completed. And I just modified it with my take on the card. And so I will be sharing that one with you. And I'm going to give you measurements. I'll warn you now, there are a lot of measurements associated with this card. And so you may want to grab real quick a paper and pencil just so that you can take your notes and have these measurements if you want to recreate this card, which I hope you will. I'm digging because I think I'm going to run out of tape again. I'm not positive, so I want to make sure I've got a refill here before I get too far into it. So the card that I'm going to be showing you today is this card. And I just used from the annual catalog It's a pack of paper called Perfectly Penciled. And it's just a whole group of black and white patterns. And I always like that because you can keep it black and white, or you can add just a touch of color. I use my blends to color right onto the paper, and then I added a bit of Wink of Stella because, you know, it's a card from Carol. It's going to sparkle just a little bit. I don't know if you can see it on camera here or not. A little bit. If you look at the Blackberry Bliss up, or the Rich Razzleberry color up there, you might see a little bit of the sparkle. And then when it opens up, I've got another piece of Designer Series paper, and inside the front flap, which is what this piece is, I've just colored another piece of the paper, and then I've used a piece of it for a background here. And when you open it all the way up, I've got Wishing You Happiness, This Special Day Will Bring, and I've just added a little piece of Designer Series paper. And so that is the card. Lots of flaps. It shows off lots of Designer Series paper. So that's going to help me meet that goal of actually using my Designer Series paper. And here is another example of a card, and this is the one that I'm going to show you tonight, but using kind of the opposite on the cardstock colors. It takes almost a sheet of paper, but it's real easy to switch your cardstock colors around a bit too. And this is using the Adorable Owls stamp set. I've actually used all 3 of these owls in this card. Along with this stamp, I covered up the You're So Cute and did the Hoot Hoot part. And then I also have used Life is Better with Friends Like You from the Flowers of Friendship stamp, which is in the annual catalog. The Adorable Owls is one that you can get for free if you have a $50 order. Again, this expires tomorrow, so if these are some stamps that you're interested in getting, get your order in right away. These have been really popular. There's some very, very cute projects. I fussy cut all the owls out. They're simple to fussy cut, so I think there's a lot of things that you can do with them. Again, Adorable Owls. And then I am using, you've seen me use this before, and I haven't talked to a single person who's gotten this that's been disappointed. The paper that I'm using is the Dainty Designs 12 by 12 Designer Series paper. Now this is a huge pack of Designer Series paper. It is 48 sheets, so you get 4 each of 12 double-sided designs. Lots of lovely, lovely spring colors, Balmy Blue, Calypso Coral, Fresh Freesia, Granny Apple Green, Mango Melody, and Petal Pink. Just gorgeous, gorgeous colors. Lots of fun to work with. But again, you can only get this through tomorrow. This one, because it is a much larger set of papers, is free with a $100 purchase. But if this is something you've been thinking about, you guys, I can't tell you how pretty this paper is. You got to get it. And as long as you're getting it, you might as well get those cute little owls too, right? So on our first flap, I've just got the little party owl. I use blends to color these in. And then when you open up the first flap, it's Hoot Hoot. When you lift that flap up, I've just got another piece of Designer Series paper, which is on top of a piece of Designer Series paper with that little owl. And then the inside of the card has the third owl, and it's just Life is Better with Friends Like You. And I've added another strip of Designer Series paper. Again, it's a great way to use Designer Series paper. This front owl is popped up on dimensionals. And again, like I said, it's an easy card to make. So let me start by giving you the dimensions, and I'll try to repeat these two a couple times throughout. Hi Anita, thanks for tuning in. Just so that you've got them. The first thing that you need is a piece of 4 1/4 by 11 inch. Sorry, my owls flew to the floor. 4 1/4 by 11 inch piece of cardstock. I am using the Fresh Freesia cardstock. One of the reasons I'm doing that is these Designer Series colors are going to be leaving us. It's going to be, and I'm really sad because I have really liked, sorry for leaning across the camera here, but these 5 ink colors will be leaving us. Hopefully some of them temporarily, but I've really loved this collection of ink colors. So Polished Pink, Evening Evergreen, Soft Succulent, Fresh Freesia, and Pale Papaya. they will be leaving at the end of this annual catalog, and that catalog will be ending on April 23rd. So towards the end of March, we're going to start having an idea of what's going to stay and what's going to go, but we know that these colors are going to be leaving because they're an in color and they only stay with us for every 2 years. So if these are colors that you like, you don't have them now, I do highly recommend that you order them along with the re-inker bottle, because once that whole retirement excitement gets going, I can guarantee that these colors are going to disappear within minutes of that announcement. Can't prove it right now, but that's my theory. Anyhow, Fresh Freesia cardstock, 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2. And then I am using the Pale Papaya cardstock. You need 2 pieces that measure make sure I give you the right ones, 3 1/2 by 4. So 3 1/2 by 4, and then you're going to score at the 1/2 inch mark on one end of each of those. So 4 by 3 1/2, scored at 1/2 inch on both of those. And then you also need a piece of cardstock. I'm going back to the Fresh Freesia. That measures 1 1/4 by 2 inches. You need 2 pieces, and I like to use coordinating patterns. You can use the same pattern, it's totally up to you, that measure 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. And then you need another piece of designer series paper that measures 4 by 5 1/4. You need a piece of basic white cardstock that measures 2 1/4 by 4. And I have chosen to put on another layer of designer series paper. If you choose to do that, this is optional. You could stamp or go, do whatever you want directly on this piece. I wanted to use a little more designer paper on mine. This piece measures 2 by 3 3/4. The little strip for inside my card is 1/2 inch by 5 1/4. And then I have another piece of basic white that measures 1 inch by 1 3/4 inch. And last but not least, I have a basic white piece for the inside of my card that measures 4 by 5 1/4. And then I have just some basic white scraps where I stamped each of those owls in the Adorable Owls stamp set, and then I colored them in with blends. And I'm going to just give you a little heads up. I noticed that in some of my some of my blends that I haven't used recently, that there was a little bit of extra liquid that came out. And so it tended to kind of run a little bit on my cardstock after I colored in. Of course, I splattered it after I was coloring it. And so that made it just kind of look like it had gotten wet. And if that happens to you, if it's too bad, too heavy, it's going to probably require that you redo whatever you've colored. I'm just going to kind of go over this again so that everything is the same shade there. To avoid this, what I would recommend that you do is, instead of opening your pens right over whatever you're working on, just take it off to the side, open it up, and then scribble a little bit on a piece of scratch paper, and that'll get rid of any of that extra liquid that is kind of sitting there. It has only happened to me on a couple of them, and it was colors I have not used in a while, and I think that has something to do with it. So learn from my mistake, don't ruin your artwork, and just take that quick little opportunity to save some aggravation. So to start with, we're just going to take our card base, which is 4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2, and we're going to burnish it with our bone folder. And then we'll go ahead and stamp this piece. And I'm going to grab my silicone mat because I didn't do that on my first one, and I want to make sure that I get it done on the second one is I want to stamp my sentiment a little more centered after I have this piece added. It was kind of an afterthought on that first card, and so I want to just get this on. All right, and then I am going to be stamping the Life is Better with Friends Like You. I'm going to go ahead and use my fresh Freesia ink. Pop that open. I thought with all those cute owls bouncing around and stuff that it might be a good match with this sentiment. And then I can set this aside to dry. I am going to go ahead and wipe my stamp off because you know I have a tendency to lay my things down in my ink pads, and because I've already had to do a couple owls over because I ran into issues with that, I am going to try to avoid having that happen now. And then the other thing that I need to stamp at this point is this Hoot Hoot. And this does include the You're So Cute. And so I'm just taking a sticky note and covering up the You're So Cute. Making sure I don't cover up anything with the Hoot Hoot. And it'll just stick to my stamp. And then I'm going to flip it over and ink it up. And I should just be getting the Hoot Hoot. One thing I did run into some issues with is catching the edge of this when I was doing that. And I knew I'm going to be doing that, so I'm just taking my chamois and trying to wipe right off the edge, just so that I don't get it on my paper. And then I'm going to line it up on this piece of basic white. Now remember that you're only using the Hoot Hoot, so you actually need to set that line up to be centered, not the entire stamp. That's a little bit lower than what I want, so let me try this again here. A lot of times when I'm doing this, it's very handy, but it does take me usually 1 or 2 tries before I get it right. So we're going to try again. Part of it is I squished it down instead of tapping because I was concerned my paper was going to fall off. All right, I think I did a better job inking it this time, so now I've got to get it centered. And boom, there we go. There we didn't go. All right. Sometimes this happens, and I had so much confidence in myself that I went ahead and cut another piece just to have a backup in case I needed it. I know. Let me get this good and clean. And I will lay my Post-it note back down. Whoops. It would help if I had it sticky side down. And just beware if you're reusing that you should wipe your fingers off before you go to re-ink again. All right, that isn't going to work. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to re-ink, and then I'm going to do this a little bit backwards in that I will grab a Post-it note and block off the section of my basic white paper that I don't want the sentiment on. And I'm going to stamp on that. And if this doesn't work, I'm just going to use it. And no, I'm not. Oh, you guys. At least you know it's live. This happens, doesn't it? All right, 3rd time, 4th time is going to be the charm. I think I got it. We aren't going to try to mess with that any further. All right. That is it for the stamping. Now, when I did stamp my owls, because I was using my blends pen, I used my my Memento ink, because that is a water-based ink, and the blends pens are alcohol-based inks. And so by using the opposite ink mediums, it prevents the black ink from running. So just a little tip on that. And then again, I just use my blends pens to cover those. So that's all we need for our stamping. We can go ahead and put this one inside the card. Remember what I say about pressing lightly when you're using your tape runner and that check mark? Do that. I was putting a lot of pressure on mine just now, and every time I do that is when I run into the situation where it doesn't work. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is take these 2 pieces of pale papaya, and we're going to fold it over on our score line. And again, I'm going to burnish this. Now this flap, you do want it to move pretty well, so I usually just go kind of back and forth a couple times and burnish it. That just makes sure that those fibers are good and broken down, and gives the flap a little bit more movement, and it will let it lie a bit better too when the card is closed up. Then I'm going to take my tear and tape without dog hair and just press it down on the flap and tear it off. And we're going to do that on both of the flaps. And probably the biggest thing to remember when you're assembling this card is you want to put these 2 pieces down before you put that larger piece of designer series paper down, and that way it covers that flap up for the most part. Sorry, I don't have it on camera here. Just realized that. You want to put the flaps down on this front before you put this designer series paper down. That way it's covered, the flaps are, and it looks a little nicer. So to put the flaps on, all you need to do is get rid of that backing. And I like to start on the left side, and I ballpark this, but I'm roughly a 1/2 inch down. And I like to get one corner down flat, and then I'll put the other one down and just burnish that down. I choose to use tear and tape because, again, this flat is going to be, sorry, I'm going to jiggle my camera here for a minute. That flap is going to be used a lot, and so when that happens, I like to make sure that I have the ability to use an adhesive that's going to stick on the paper. All right, so then the next thing I'm going to do is adhere this other flap down. Now, I want it, again, about a 1/2 inch up from the bottom, kind of the same distance. So I'm going to eyeball that, get that first half down, and then line up the rest of it so that it's right along that edge. And then I've got my cardstock here, ready to be decorated. So the next thing that we'll do is add this larger piece of designer series paper. And we'll put that right over the flap. So you can see that it looks a lot better than if we had those flaps on top of this layer. I just think it looks a little bit better. And then the next thing that we're going to do is add our layers of designer series paper. You could go the dots here and this piece here. On this card, I kind of did it the opposite way. So I think I will change it up for this card just a little bit. It doesn't really matter. You can do whatever you want to do. And see, It's one of those nights, you guys. Guess who just ran out of adhesive? It's all right. I always have refills on hand. And fortunately, they are easy to install. Just pop it on the pegs, close it up. One of the things I like to do is if I've got any goopy buildup, kind of pull that off too while I have it separated. All right, now I can go back to what I was doing. And we're just going to put this piece right on here. So again, remember these pale papaya pieces, those were 4 by 3.5 inches, and we scored it at a 1/2 inch on one end. And then these designer series paper layers that we're attaching, those are 3 by 3. Actually, they are 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. I apologize. Just double checked. Didn't sound right to me. All right, so there's that piece. And then what we will do is pop up our owl on the front. And again, I'm going to just do this guy. And I did use dimensionals to pop the owl up. And so you can see on the back of this that I didn't like my first stamp, and so I flipped her over and used the other side. That's the beauty about our cardstock, is it always comes with 2 sides. And I just kind of had this one going a little crooked, and I do want to make him sparkle a little bit more, so I'm going to add some Winkostella all over. Winkostella is one of my most favorite products just because it doesn't take a whole lot, and it can really just add that little bit of sparkle to your card. All right, so that takes care of that piece, and then we're going to layer our Hoot Hoot onto this little piece of fresh freesia cardstock. And that I will put some more adhesive on. For some reason, my touch is quite heavy tonight on that. And you want to make sure that when you put this on, it's going to be covered by the flap. So you are going to put it over more to the right, just because you've got that gap. I think it would look funny if it's stuck out. If that doesn't bother you, put it in the center. So that way it just doesn't show. It's kind of a surprise when they open the card up. And then we're going to move to the inside of the card, and this is where we're going to take this last piece of designer series paper. And again, you can choose which side shows up. I'm just going to center this onto the basic white cardstock, and then I'll add adhesive to the back of that. And this I'm going to center between these 2 pieces. So I'm going to actually work with the top of the piece that's down lower, and I'm going to center this between this edge and this edge. That's sort of what I'm using to gauge where I'm going to put it. And then in here, we're going to add our little owl with the bow tie. Come on, Carol, you can do it. So we're just going to put him in there. He's kind of just a little surprise when you open up that flap. And then last but not least, we need to add this 3rd owl to the inside of the card. And I'm just going to kind of have it flying over the top here. Now I noticed that when I stamped this owl, I don't think it came through very well on the eyes. They look kind of cloudy. And so I'm just going to take my Stampin' Up marker. I have a basic black one. And I'm just going to color over just the pupils. Just fill it in. And it makes those a little darker. So they're more intense, like an owl might be out in the woods. And that is what I'm calling the foot flap card. So you've got this flap, you've got this flap, which opens up to this page, and then when you lift this top flap over, whoa, you also get this image. So foot flap fold. Lynn, it would make a cute Easter card. I thought I was seeing bunnies with this paper, and I don't have any bunny stamps, so I couldn't do that. But this paper definitely reminds me of Easter. So I think that would be real cute. If you do that, post a picture of it. I'd love to see it. All right. So there you go. You can use those adorable owls and that beautiful, beautiful designer series paper, both of which you could get for free with a qualifying order. The Dandy Designs designer series paper and the adorable owl stamp set. But remember, you can only get those through tomorrow, February 28th. After that, these items will not be available for you. So the Dandy Designs paper is on page 14 of the Sale-a-bration Catalog, and the adorable owls can be found on page 4 of the catalog. So have a great night, everybody. We will see you next week for another Make It Monday. In the meantime, I'm just going to sit here and flip flap my cards. Have a great week. Bye-bye.